listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What is up? Hope you're well in this Halloween month, and thanks so much for choosing to listen to my show Straight to Video. As always, I'm your host Rob Lane, and today the horror chats continue as I speak to indie horror's resident UK scream queen Dani Thompson. For the past couple of years, I've been enjoying learning all the goings on in independent horror cinema. It's amazing stuff that's out there all over the world, and particularly here in the UK. Pretty much anything goes, and Dani is a name that was continually cropping up. She's appeared in films such as My Bloody Banjo, Axe to Grind, Power Tool, Cheerleaders, and Eating Miss Campbell, as well as Video Shop Tales of Terror, whose makers have been incredibly supportive of our 80s video shop, and happy to report that movie will finally be getting its Blu-ray release with loads of extra VHS-inspired goodness next month. Dani and I chatted all about her career, her introductions to horror, and bridging the gap between modelling and acting. She shares stories of her time in London with the paparazzi, and how she feels and if she deserves the title of Scream Queen in a world alongside the likes of Elvira, Caroline Munro, and Neve Campbell. This Straight to Video podcast is proudly presented to you in association with Affinity Photo, an incredible piece of photo editing software which I use all the time for graphic design, and it's used to create the podcast episode artwork you see each week. But what's really cool is that it's an extremely affordable alternative to other programs on the market, so if it sounds of interest, please check them out at affinity.serif.com. Okay, let's dive on in. If you want to learn more about Dani's career, you'd be hard to miss her killing it on social media, or you can visit her website, which is dani-thompson.com. And if you want to pick up Video Shop Tales of Terror, it's available to pre-order from videodungeon.bigcartel.com. But right now, please enjoy my straight to video chat with Dani Thompson.
Can you hear me?
I got you.
You got me and you can hear me.
Straight away, straight in there.
Amazing, because usually I come through and no one can hear me and there's a whole big problem.
How you doing, Dani?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. How's your day going?
It's good. I've been all over the place today, actually. This is, I'm surprised I'm ready. That's why I was like, is this video or is it just voice? Because I was in the gym, then I had to go to the estate agents and I went out for lunch and all sorts of things, but I'm back.
Everything happening on a Friday. No, it's a Thursday.
It's Thursday.
I feel like a Friday.
You're wishing, well, I haven't actually done any work this week. Today's like my first day. I've been away. I've been in Scotland.
Oh, wow. You've been filming up there?
No, I was just out hiking.
Oh, I saw some photos on Instagram. That's cool. What do? You get the train up there or do you drive?
I drove. So I've moved. I'm not in London anymore. I've moved to the northeast. So it's only an hour and a half to Scotland.
Oh, wicked. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in South Shields.
Why South Shields? Any reason?
It's like a weird vortex place that keeps suckering in all of my friends. They all keep moving here. I want to be by the beach, and so I've followed them all.
Bit of a contrast to London then.
It is a bit different, but it's very peaceful. And I was like, there's, a lot of hike potential. So you've got Scotland, you've got the lakes, Yorkshire, like all within an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I'm living at my friend's house at the moment. So I sold my place in London. I've moved in here while I house hunt. In the meantime, I've got like a single bed. I mean, it's a super cute little room. I've got like all my stuff in here.
Is it like being like a student again?
Yeah. So I've managed to get the bed. Well, the bed is here. And then I've got like a bureau so I can have my laptop and everything. And you're on a tripod right now. And then I've got a bookshelf and a chest of drawers and a wardrobe. And then I've got like a loft full, a shed full. And then my other friend's garage is full of my stuff. So my stuff is just everywhere right now.
Are you a bit of an hoarder or are you quite good at downsizing?
Well, I lived in my place 16 years and like you'll probably understand this because I think a lot of people who aren't arty can live very minimally, they don't have stuff. Whereas I've got like not just, normal stuff you have, I've got a lot of books, but then I've also got a lot of DVDs. I mean, I've downsized a lot of that stuff. Also for me, I've got costume for modeling. I've got like 20 wigs. So like my wardrobe department is like, that's probably more than people have in their bedroom.
It's essentials.
It's essentials. And then of course I've got like pop vinyl dolls and, all the crap I don't need. And loads of collector's edition Barbies. Oh, also I've got 70 houseplants. So at the moment, there's 12 in my bedroom, put some in my friend's bedroom here. The living room's full, kitchen units are covered. And then I filled one of my other friends' kitchens and living rooms as well.
Was they expecting this when they agreed to let you stay?
Yeah, they know me. We all actually met. We lived in the same building in London. We all met that way. And so my ex-boyfriend lives up here with his girlfriend. We're still very good friends. So he was from here. So he moved back here. Then one of the other guys, he was originally from Gateshead. He ended up moving up here. And then my best friend, he's never been from here. His mum got married to someone from here.
Wow.
So he ended up moving here. So then it was like, well, everyone's there now.
The magnet of South Shields.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting that you were born in Australia but moved to the UK when you were like 2 years old. Are your family originally from there, or was it like a family work situation?
No. So my dad was actually from the northeast of England. He wasn't quite this north. He was a little bit further south. He was in Durham. So he was from there, but he moved a long, long time ago. And then he'd been out in Australia. So that was that. And then they moved to England. They moved to Norfolk. Grew up in Norfolk. They moved to Norfolk when I was a kid.
Was it Penrith, I believe, just west of Sydney?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember anything about it.
No, too.
I don't remember being there. I mean, my only knowledge of Australia comes from like Home and Away and eating Vegemite.
Nowhere you've revisited, fancy going back at any point?
Well, I really don't like spiders. So
says the lady who stars in horror films and all that.
Yeah, everybody really laughs at me for this, but and I hike a lot. So anywhere I go in England, nothing's really going to kill me. There's no wildlife that can kill me. Nothing's going to bite me, and I'm going to, it's just not very dangerous. Like out there, you've got to worry. I mean, I like snakes, but obviously I would be wary of a poisonous snake or one that's going to like strangle me or something. I don't think you get anacondas there. But if it's someone's pet snake, I'm cool. But yeah, I don't want to be out on a hike and then come across some snake that's going to kill me, or a spider that's going to kill me, or I don't know, a kangaroo that's going to disembowel me or something.
I love that's the reason you don't want to go back to one of the most amazing countries on the planet.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to get eaten by a shark. There's that too. That's like an irrational fear I have because I rarely swim in the sea. And when I do, it's not where there are sharks, but I do have that's like an irrational fear of mine is getting eaten by a shark.
Well, mine's plane crashes.
Well, that's not that irrational though, is it? Because you probably get in planes.
I suppose so, yeah. But yeah, I have recurring nightmares about that, which that scares me, the fact that it keeps coming back. So I'm like, oh shit. But you came to the UK and you say it was grew up in like the Norfolk, Norwich area. Was you a movie fan always growing up?
Well, I think when I was really young, I didn't watch a lot of movies. I used to play outside. So the first film I remember watching is my favourite film to this day, and it's The Wizard of Oz. And I never get sick. Even when I was little, I never got ill, so I never got days off school. And my mum kind of took pity on me because I never could get a day off. So she just took me off one day and she bought The Wizard of Oz on video. And she'd bought some pick and mix and some popcorn.
Some Lucasade.
No, I don't think I had Lucasade. I mean, I don't know what I used to drink when I was little. Probably orange juice. No, we had all the snacks and yeah, I had got a day off school and I watched it. So I've got that nice fond memory of watching that film, but it's also the first film I remember watching.
I think I've heard you describe it as a bit of a horror film though, right? If you take it down to its blueprint.
Yes, isn't it? A woman kills another woman over a pair of shoes or something like that. Somebody's written it's like a newspaper description. I mean, I can understand it. They were, good shoes.
What was it that attracted you to that film, do you think, that still holds up today? Just a great story or the characters?
I mean, it's a great story and it's all a little bit magical. And I think even if you watched it now for the first time, although the sets are made from cardboard, I think it would still have the magic for people. And there was the witches and then there was the scary monkeys that fly and the winky guards, they were quite scary.
Are you a fan of Return to Oz?
Yes, that's dark though.
That is seriously dark.
Where all of the dancing girls' heads come to life and they're all like Dorothy Gale. That bit was terrifying.
Disney made some scary shit back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know who directed that, but super dark.
Yeah, they did that one, and then they did one which I always reference is Something Wicked This Way Comes. I don't know if you've seen that.
I don't think I have,
Yeah, look for the trailer on YouTube. Just the trailer alone is creepy as heck.
I've seen Bell, Book and Candle. I don't think that was Disney though. So some old kind of witchy films. Like I like a good witchy film. I would like to write a good witchy script, but it's kind of hard to come up with something that either hasn't been done or something that, I don't want to go necessarily into the historical, like Salem-y style, or folk style witchy stuff, but something that's kind of modern and up to date that can be horror but workable. It's tough.
Just ramp up a Hocus Pocus or something like that.
Yeah, they should have left that one alone. Did you see the second one?
I didn't know.
It was one of those films that I was so looking forward to, and then I was so disappointed because I love the first one. The first one, I watch it every Halloween, actually. That's quite scary for a film that's kind of directed towards kids, really. But yeah, the second one just didn't have whatever it needed.
I guess it's kind of like a gateway horror, which is something you can show kids, warm them up for stuff later on when they turn 18 and get into the gory stuff. I love all those kind of films. Some of your early introductions to the world of horror, though, I believe, were like the 90s teen slasher resurgence, which I loved all that. Horror suddenly became like exciting and fresh again around that time, with big films were back at the cinema. In hindsight, though, it seemed like it had been a long time since horror had been at the cinema, but it was only a few years since the late 80s boom, so that probably shows how fast time is going nowadays. Did you see all those films at the cinema, or was it on video?
No, I didn't. So I missed all the 80s horror. I was a bit young. You know, I never saw The Nightmare on Elm Street and all of those, and I hadn't even seen them at the point of me watching the 90s ones. And then I was actually in Canada, and I was at my cousin's, and we were in the basement, which was set up as like a TV room for the kids. And we watched Scream, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. And it was, you know, it was like a high budget, it was glossy, but I liked that it's horror. And I love a jump scare because I'm really easy to make jump. But also, you know, the dialogue was clever. It had humor in it. So it wasn't all gore. It was like inventive deaths, and the twists were there. It was everything I needed it to be. And then I came back to England, and then, you know, they just kept making them, didn't they? With Urban Legend and I Know What You Did Last Summer, even the Final Destinations. And I just loved all of that era. And I still do. Like all of those I can watch over and over again. They're still some of my favourite films.
Well, speaking about which films, The Craft.
I was going to mention that, actually.
How did you feel about was it a remake or was it like a requel? I can't remember what they did a few years ago.
It wasn't a remake. It was different. Like, it wasn't a remake of the story, but they did touch upon some of the same things, like light as a feather, stiff as a board. They touched upon those things, and then they just modernised it a bit, and it was unnecessary.
They're always unnecessary, these films.
It was completely unnecessary. It's about as unnecessary as the Hocus Pocus 2, equally unnecessary. I don't know if it was as bad as Hocus Pocus 2, but it was definitely not good. I don't know, if a teenager watched that and they hadn't seen the first one, like a modern teenager, maybe they'd like it.
Yeah, I think all these new films, they have to kind of hit certain beats and have to do something to keep people's attention. I think that's why sometimes kids like find older stuff boring.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Watching these kind of films as a kid, did you think, or could you imagine being in movies of your own back then? Did you ever think, oh, that'd be fun to do that?
I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. I think when I was younger, I wanted to be an actress, but that was from watching like Kylie Minogue on Neighbours. I wanted to be a soap actress, but it wasn't something I ever had a clue how you would do. I didn't grow up in Norwich. I grew up in the countryside out of Norwich, and it's, you know, you come from there, you don't really end up, well, you just don't know how to follow that path. I think if you're in London, then you've got more opportunities, but I don't know how I ended up here, to be honest. Somehow I did.
Especially like living out in the country, it's like pursuing something in a creative field. It's often challenging to convince others that that is something that you can do as an actual job. That's your first initial hurdle.
It doesn't seem like a real job, and obviously only for a few people does it become very lucrative, but I think it's always a good idea to have something else to fall back on.
What was your kind of original step then into modelling and moving to London? Was that exciting or scary for you?
It was, but it just kind of happened because I'd started modelling, and then I started back and forthing to London a lot, and I just bought a house in Norwich, but I was never there. I felt like I'd come to London for a few days, I'd go home, I'd do laundry, unpack, repack, and then I'd be off, so I didn't feel settled. So that's when I ended up moving to London. And I think for that time in my 20s, it was a perfect place to be. I was partying every night, I was going to all kinds of events, and I loved it. That was through modelling though. And then when I decided to go to drama school, it just so happened that the drama school was near to my apartment in London. And then I just stayed there. But I stayed there way longer than I planned to. And I think now, because a lot of my work's not in London, I'm not going around auditioning every day. You know, I found my niche in horror. So most people just ask me to do stuff now. Or I recommend it. But I'm often not in London. So I'm like, well, you know, I could live in the north and travel back if I need to. Or just try and work it so that everybody knows if I'm doing a trip to London, right, I'm going to be in London these days. If you want me, book me then.
What was it like when you arrived in London? Was there like a popular night spot back then which you liked? Or how have things changed over the years? Has it totally transformed since you were last there?
Yes, it will have totally changed. Like, when I was modelling, they used to have like paparazzi outside nightclubs taking pictures of like the glamour girls. We used to go out in our underwear. It must have been freezing. Like, what was I thinking? But some of the outfits that we wore, obviously that would get you in the papers, or you do a deal with one of the paparazzi photographers. You'd be like, right, I'm going to wear a coat. Let's go down the road. You can take all the pictures. And then I'll put my coat on. Then they have to split the money that they get. So that worked. And then obviously it made it worthwhile. But yeah, it used to be China Whites every Wednesday, without fail, every Wednesday. Funky Buddha on a Tuesday. And then Embassy was like Friday, Saturday, kind of any other day, really. They were my main spots. So there was Vendome. I don't know what night that was on, though. But yeah, there were certain nights you went to certain places.
What were some of your favourite music venues? Because I know you're a music fan as well. Did you have any particular favourites?
So for me, when I go out, I'll just dance and whatever, because I like really cheesy pop music, but then I like indie rock music, but then I also like old 50s stuff, but I don't like anything modern. So wherever I used to go, to be honest, it would probably be R&B, hip hop. I don't know, funky house, is that a thing? I don't even know what these things are. I don't like them, but I just danced or whatever.
Did you see any bands or anything back then?
I've seen like all sorts of bands. I've seen Kylie Minogue many times. I've seen Jason Donovan many times. I've seen the Spice Girls a few times.
You're kind of painting a niche here.
Yeah, I'm not... Okay, Guns N' Roses. I've just been to see Def Leppard and Motley Crue. So, like, you know, my taste is diverse.
A good hook, a big chorus, and you're in.
Yeah, we actually went backstage at Guns N' Roses. That was fun. I don't know if I've seen any other cool bands. Like, I mean, I'm going with the Spice Girls are cool.
Well, it's undeniable. They changed the musical landscape when they came.
Exactly.
When you were modelling and stuff, you did a lot of like the Lads Mags things, and that was so big at its height. New shelves were full of all those magazines. And all of a sudden, it disappeared. How did you find that situation? Are you good at switching gears?
Yeah, I think you have to. You have to. But it was social media, because obviously girls were getting paid to be in magazines and everywhere else. And then you've got social media comes along, and I mean, MySpace, it seemed to be okay, but as soon as Instagram started, you've got girls posting like half naked shots on there. I think Twitter, you can post anything naked on there. So girls were just posting themselves on there for the attention, but not getting paid. And then it's like, guys don't need to buy the Lads Mags anymore because they might as well just go and get the free stuff. So it kind of killed the industry. I don't know if there's any Lads Mags left in the UK now. I think some of the ones abroad, I think they still have some, but yeah, it's just completely different industry. So, I mean, it kind of happened at the same time when I decided to go to drama school anyway, because I was getting older, and obviously I thought glamour modelling had a shelf life, but actually now people are kind of staying in it a lot longer. So I still do here and there, and you know, I've still got an OnlyFans, which is glamour content, and if people still want it, I'll still produce it.
You got a calendar coming out as well?
I've got a calendar coming out. I haven't shot it yet, but I've decided on a horror / pin-up theme. So it's all going to be a little bit horror. That's basically what we're going with.
When you got into the acting, did you always feel comfortable on a movie set? Did you enjoy the whole atmosphere about it, even the waiting around?
I always have a book, and I can sit for hours and read. So I'm more than happy if I'm warm and I'm fed and I've got a book, I can wait around. It's not a problem.
Warm, fed, sorted.
Yeah, like then I'm happy. Filming low budget films, I've had to wait around in a forest and it can be freezing. You just got to make sure you always have layers. Just literally be prepared. If you're somebody who gets cold, take loads of clothes. Like, it's better to have stuff with you than not have it.
I suppose being on the indie scene as well, it's like be prepared for the unexpected as well.
Yeah, because you can't prepare for weather. If you're shooting outside and it rains, well, you're going to get wet, or you're going to have to wait for it to start for. It is what it is. I've been on big budget stuff where they create rain. If it's not raining, they've got somebody there creating rain or washing down the pavements to make it look wet. But we've just filmed a short film called Dragon, which is part of Maiko's horoscopes. We shot one day and it was like a sunny day, and then the guy gets in the car and he drives to the next location, which is meant to be 5 minutes down the road. We shot it another day, and then he pulls up and it's raining, and I was like, do you know what, that's going to work for me, because that's where the film was kind of taking a turn anyway. So if we're going from sunny to the rain, kind of works, but that's only because that's what happened. I didn't plan for it.
Happy accident. Very, very cool. When you started acting, was there anyone who gave you any particularly good advice?
Not really. There was a girl on a film set once, and she said, read your lines before you go to bed. And I don't know whether that stuck with me or what it was, but I do that now. I'll read my script a couple of times, and then I'll read it a couple of times before I go to bed, and I just know my lines the next day. So that's a tip, that whether there's something in that or not, I think maybe your brain kind of goes over that while you're asleep.
You don't do anything like record your lines and play them to yourself while you're asleep?
No. If it's a script that's very tough, because a lot of the time you'll get a script and you're like, that's just the whole page just looks like it's your dialogue and no one else has very much. So I'll kind of go over and I'll just kind of have my hand over it and I'll kind of think of my line, then I'll kind of pull it down to read their line and then to know where I come in, really. But I'm really lucky actually in that I find lines quite easy to learn. That's not to say I want anyone to ever give me really difficult ones, because that would probably stress me out.
Some like Quentin Tarantino dialogue script or something like that.
Yeah, I don't want a monologue or anything, but I'm pretty good. You know, there's certain people you get there on the day and they change them all anyway. So I'm like, well, if I'd have spent all my time learning that, I'd have been super cross.
Curveball you on the day. Oh, this whole section's changed.
Yeah, or I recently did a film where I got booked on the Friday. I think someone had dropped out and we were starting filming the Monday. They confirmed me the Friday night. I was in the middle of moving house, so I was literally packing and getting all my stuff out on the weekend, so I had no time to look at the script for like the full week to learn all my lines. I was literally just having to get there, learn what I needed for the day, and then just work with it. But it worked.
Once you started like getting the horror roles, did things pick up pretty quickly? Because I mean, you've been constantly busy.
Yeah, so I never set out just to do horror. Obviously going to drama school, I trained to do all sorts of things, but I've always loved horror. So for me, falling into it and feeling like I've kind of got that niche just works for me. And a lot of the horror, indie horror world in the UK, everybody knows everybody, you know, and everyone's really supportive of everyone else. Like I think with other films there's competition with, you know, directors and things, but in horror everyone's kind of rooting for everyone else, and because everyone knows everyone, it just became easy to book the roles.
Even like the filmmakers are fans of the genre, and it's so easy to tell that as well. So that's one of the reasons everyone's so supportive. Everyone enjoys seeing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Was there a particular role or moment when you began developing, I'm going to say this like Scream Queen persona? Was there anything that you noticed that people started identifying you as that?
No, because, you know, you do a few films and I've seen actresses like identify themselves as a Scream Queen when they've done one film. And I'm like, I don't know. And I, for ages, would never have accepted that I'm a Scream Queen. I'd be like Scream Princess, because I feel like I just haven't earned the Scream Queen thing. You know, like in training, Scream Queen in training, Scream Princess is kind of training.
Hey, that's a merchandise opportunity there for a t-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. So I used that for a really long time. And I only think it's more recently people are like, but you kind of have done a lot now. And I'm like, okay, so maybe now I would accept someone calling me that. But before it was just really because I just didn't think I deserved it. I didn't think I'd earned it. So I don't know. I think it's down for other people to say, really, not me myself to give myself that title.
As like a 90s horror fan, was you like aware of people like Elvira or Caroline Munro, who you seem to embody and you continue the tradition of? Is that something you embrace and enjoy?
I wasn't really. I mean, I think for me it was people like Nev Campbell and Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar, who, you know, all of those films, they tended to dot about and all kind of stay in that genre. So for me, they were kind of my, you know, I loved those films. I loved what they did. And even Jennifer Love Hewitt, when she branched out and did Ghost Whisperer, and then she did a show called The Client List, which wasn't horror at all. Well, Ghost Whisperer wasn't horror, but it was supernatural. But I really loved her and all of that as well. So, you know, and even Sarah Michelle Gellar went on and she did Ringer, good TV show. So I just liked the way their careers kind of went.
Have you crossed paths with Caroline Munro?
Yeah, so we are in a couple of things together, but we haven't actually worked on screen together. So we were both in Pocket Film of Superstitions and both in, I think, Cute Little Buggers. But I've met Caroline at many events and been out for dinner, and she's absolutely lovely. So now I've watched some of her stuff, whereas I didn't know who she was before. But now I'm kind of delving into all those old Hammer horror films now. Somebody bought me a box set and I've been making my way through.
Have you seen her in the James Bond film?
Yes.
Fantastic.
I have. Yeah. My gay best friend was like, she's like the only woman he's ever fancied. He's like in that helicopter. I haven't told her this yet. I will tell her when I see her.
Caroline's one of the people I always associated her with that role. And you find it a lot with actors and actresses and stuff. Usually the people who play like the nasty, horrible roles are usually like the sweetest people. Kiefer Sutherland, I always associate him with like villain roles. And then apparently he's just such a nice guy.
Yeah, but being like playing nasty is super fun because you something you can really sink your teeth into, and like you can really create that character who, you know, who you would never behave like that usually, but it's quite fun.
Let that dark side out of you.
Yeah, I think I'm better at playing a baddie than I am playing a goodie when I'm actually quite nice. Don't tell people.
Are there any roles or films that have been particularly exciting for you, either on the scale of the production or maybe the people you've worked with?
I've worked with so many people that are really cool. I mean, I loved working with a director called Joshua Kennedy. I worked with him out in Texas, and he is literally him and his friend are the crew, and he does everything himself. He's obsessed with like old Hammers and old Harryhausen movies. He did a film with Caroline, actually, House of the Gorgon, and I met him through that film. And then he asked me to go on and do another 2 films with him, and that was like an amazing experience, obviously going out to Texas, and super nice guy, super talented. So I loved that, and obviously shooting on a Texan beach, lassoing a pterodactyl was a cool experience.
Is he as crazy as his films look? I've only seen the trailers for his films, but they look batshit crazy.
He's absolutely lovely. The way he scheduled the day, we had loads of time off. I'm like, man, we're shooting 2 films, and I'm only here for 5 days, but travel days. And then he scheduled a day off. We've got a day off here. We'll go and watch this old film. He took me bird watching at the birding centre, which, if you know me, I'm a real geek, and I really loved it because they have like really exotic birds out there. So yeah, probably a bit bonkers, but super, super fun.
Whereabouts in Texas was you? Do you remember?
He's in like the south pole of Texas. So it's about as far south as you can get before you hit Trump's wall.
Right, fair enough.
And then you're in Mexico. So I mean, he's coming over actually in December, I think I've heard. So good to catch up.
You worked on the film Extra Grime. Was that shot out in LA?
It was, yeah. That was another amazing experience. Yeah, that was super fun. I shot Christmas layout in Bulgaria. But then the directors that I've worked with here in the UK that I've loved, like I love working with Liam Regan, playing Dietz in Banjo. Like, she's just evil. So that was a super fun role. My role, Chloe in Power Tool Cheerleaders. She's another bitch. Ice Cream on the Beach, where I play Paula Valentine, and Video Shop Tells Terror. Paula's like super fun to play. She keeps dying in everything. She keeps coming back into another film. I think she's spanned 3 different directors' film universes as well. So it's not like she's even just stuck to one thing. It's like she's her own person now.
You mentioned Video Shop Tales of Terror. That gets its Blu-ray launch in November. You had a large part in that. You did the wraparound host sections and also appeared in a couple of stories. How did you get involved in that?
So I got involved in Video Shop through Sing Lal and also Alex Churchard. Lal, I knew, he works with one of my very good friends, and I knew him through that, and I knew him through Horror on Sea. Obviously, Alex I'd worked with in Ice Cream on the Beach. They asked me to come aboard for, I think, probably for the wraparound, but then the directors, they had asked to do the segments, and then I think Alex got me to then shoot a little cameo bit. So they're watching a film within the film in his one. So there's only actually one of the 5 that I'm not in the whole of Video Shop, playing completely different characters, which was, again, super cool because I got to do different things. But then there was the wraparound bit, but then there's also the horror hosting bit, which kind of came in later. So I'm not going to be in the second one as much. I think I'm literally just hosting that because people will be sick of me.
Has that been shot yet? Because I know it's in the works, the sequel to it.
I don't know who's shot what for that one yet. We've shot the wraparound, we've shot the horror hosting bit. So we've done all that, but I don't know who's shot what for the segments. Alex did say he wanted to use me for his, so that may happen.
You'll be in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. And then I think there's a third one, which I've actually made direct a piece for the third one. So I think that one's going through pick and mix. And I think it's the case, because it might change, but I think it was the case that they were going to get each person to do a different like subgenre of horror. So I chose slasher. So if that's all what's happening, I'm saying it here first. I've chosen slashers and no one else can have that. It's mine.
It's out there. It's stamped.
But they may change their idea, so who knows?
Everyone involved in that project worked so hard, and they really, one thing above all, they really nailed the promotion aspect of it, making the horror community take note. What have been your experiences in the horror fan base from festivals such as Horror on Sea, which you mentioned? I think you featured in 6 of their movies at one festival.
I did. Don't ask me what they are, because I'll miss some out and then I'll feel bad.
And stuff like Fright Fest. Do you like going to those events?
Yeah, I mean, Fright Fest, I've only been for the full festival once. But Horror on Sea, it's such a like family thing. It's film fans, but it's filmmakers that are film fans mostly. So it's a great place for networking, but also, you might not see people for that full year in between. Obviously, you'll see them on social media, you know what everyone's up to, but that's just a great time for everyone to. It's like having a school reunion every year with your friends. And Paul Cotgrove, who organises it, does such an incredible job, and he's so supportive as well. I mean, he actually does appear in Video Shop Tells of Terror, so they managed to rope him in. But yeah, I mean, that's a lovely festival. And I need to try and do some of the northern festivals now that I've moved.
I was just about to ask that, yeah, because obviously Horror on Sea and Fright Fest are all down south. Now you're up north.
I mean, I'll go back for Horror on Sea in January, but I keep thinking about the end of the year. I've got to go back to London in November, and then obviously I'm going to go home for Christmas, and then it's like, then it'll be January. So I'll probably be spending a lot of time with myself for the next few months anyway.
What are your plans for Halloween? Do you have any particular traditions?
I have traditions. I don't have any plans this year. So I always have like a little movie day. So I tend to watch Hocus Pocus, Beetlejuice, and Trick or Treat. They usually happen every year. And then I eat loads of sweets, because you're supposed to. But yeah, I mean, where I used to live in London, we used to have a bar in our building, so I often used to throw the Halloween party in there. And I just try and go to as many like Halloween events as I can. I think there's some like Halloween night market happening on Sunday, so might go there. I don't know. I mean, I think we'll decorate. My friend was on about making the front garden into a graveyard, so I think we'll do that.
So you said Trick or Treat. Is that Trick or Treat or Trick or Treat?
Trick or Treat.
Both great films. I just wondered which one it was.
I didn't know there was a different one.
Yeah, there's one from the 80s called Trick or Treat. That was the first film that introduced me to subliminal messages in record players if you played them backwards.
Do you know what introduced me to that was Josie and the Pussycats.
Perfectly valid.
Yeah, which I loved.
Oh, that soundtrack to that is fantastic.
That was a 90s film, wasn't it? That was 90s.
Yeah, 90s or early 2000s, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Speaking of Josie and the Pussycats and stuff, wasn't you toying with the idea of having a group called the Pumpkin Spice Girls?
Well, no, how did you get this from? Wow. So yeah, I was like, well, what about if we did like a funny Halloween track by the Pumpkin Spice Girls? But then actually I got together with two of my friends and we created a little band. We do have a song called Trick or Treat, and we called ourselves Hex, but the E is a 3 because there's 3 of us. And we were going to do more songs and it just never really happened. And there was a Christmas song written and that didn't ever get finished. And so it's not like we're dead and buried because we're still best friends. We may come back and do something. But yeah, Trick or Treat, the video is on YouTube and it's available to buy on all music platforms, Apple, Spotify, whatever else.
Yeah, Pumpkin Spice Girls, great name, but that's a lawsuit in the making if you ever did that.
Did think that. We called ourselves Hex and then, yeah.
You could knock off a few T-shirts on the side, it'd be fine.
Yeah, but if the Spice Girls, because I don't think Victoria Beckham ever wants to go back, does she? If they are looking for a new Spice Girl, I could be Pumpkin Spice. I know all their dance routines and I know all the songs, so it'll be fine. Like, they need Pumpkin Spice.
Danny, last question.
Go on.
I might know some of the answers to this from some of the things you've said. Time travel to a Friday night in the late 80s or early 90s and you're heading to the video store. What movie soundtrack do you have on the Walkman and what 3 tapes are you going to rent for the weekend?
Okay, so the soundtrack, it's a soundtrack I actually have on my phone at the moment in my Apple Music, and it's the Craft soundtrack, which is one of the best soundtracks. I just love it. Got some super cool songs on it. So it would definitely be that one. And what would I rent? So I'm going to take it back to the 80s a little bit because we talked about all the 90s things I love, but The Lost Boys, we've got to rent The Lost Boys. The Goonies, I mean, it's not a horror, but it's a great video shop movie. And let's go with The Craft. I've got the Craft soundtrack, let's go with The Craft. Because I was thinking maybe Beetlejuice, but you're only letting me have 3.
Yeah, The Craft's a great one. That's an underrated one.
Yeah.
How did you feel about The Faculty?
I quite liked The Faculty. I can't remember it now. I remember liking it at the time.
Another one with a great soundtrack. Some of those films from back then had killer soundtracks.
They did.
Like that crossover of like indie, alternative, hard rock. It was all on there.
Yeah, that's the kind of music I like.
Great choices, by the way. Great choices. I love it. Thank you for chatting with me, Dani. I've enjoyed that. It's been great.
Speak to you later.
Massive thanks and shout to Dani Thompson for joining me on today's Straight to Video podcast. Dani appears in Video Shop Tales of Terror, which is available to pre-order from videodungeon.bigcartel.com, and will also be making an appearance in my buddy Chris's new film, which he's shooting at our 80s video shop. One Night Rental is in production now, and you can find all the info by searching One Night Rental the Movie on Facebook. Speaking of the Straight to Video 80s video shop in Alfreton, Derbyshire, which is just 10 minutes from junction 28 of the M1, we have a special Halloween day coming up on Saturday the 21st of October. Iconic horror artist Graham Humphries is returning to the shop, where he'll be selling and signing prints of his amazing artwork, as well as his new book Nightmare on One Sheet, which you can pre-order and get it signed on the day from www.80svideoshop.co.uk. And following that, on Monday the 30th of October, the night before Halloween, we'll be teaming up once again with the Loft Movie Theatre for another Halloween screening. This time it's The Return of the Living Dead at the Savoy Cinema in Nottingham. Tickets for this are on sale now, so I really hope some of you can make it along. So that's all for this episode. I'll be back next Friday as we creep towards Halloween, but until then, always be kind. Please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.